Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, October 9th. Sunday, October 10th, for those of you across the pond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Hope you had a rockin' week, an awesome beginning to your weekend, and I am your host, TessaTNT. We are live tonight on Spreaker, Periscope, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. Tonight, I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight, we will be talking to and getting to know Interface Death Paranormal. Interface Death Paranormal is a paranormal research group comprised of photographers, filmmakers, psychics, and technicians from around the Midwest. Their objective is to create documentaries of their attempts to acquire data from the investigations they conduct in the field. They test hypotheses and develop theories that correlate paranormal phenomena with scientific principles. They want to remove the para from the paranormal. So tonight we are joined by Justin, Melissa, and Jessica. Welcome, guys. It's so great to have you on the show tonight.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
So to start off with, I like to ask my guests, what got you interested into the field of the paranormal? And we'll start with Justin, then move to Melissa, then Jessica.
Well, to make it as short as possible, because it kind of spans through the course of, I want to say, 25, 30 years, almost 35 years. But my mother has abilities, and she pretty much brought me up with stories of her paranormal experiences, and they were pretty fantastical, pretty profound events that happened to her, and her sister would experience a lot with her. So I kind of grew up with her and her sister telling me all these things, and I thought she was crazy. I didn't think she was lying to me because she's a nice person, but I just thought she was crazy because they were just everything from UFO visitations to ghostly encounters. And it didn't really start to get real for me until we moved into a house within the city limits of Hillsborough, Ohio, which is in southern Ohio. We had bought a house from a local firefighter and his family. We moved in. They moved out to a new house right outside of town, and there was nothing paranormal about the house. Nothing was going on. So, fast forwarding a year later, the man who sold us the house had marital issues, and he ended up committing suicide. He took a shotgun to his stomach and blew his guts out outside of his barn. And what's very strange about that is right when that happened is when we started experiencing your typical, onset of a haunting. Footsteps would occur. You would hear footsteps go up and down the stairs at night when we were trying to sleep. And this was perplexing my father. He would hear the footsteps. He would yell at me and my brother to go back to bed. My mom would say, "No, it's not them. It's the man, we bought the house from, who killed himself." He didn't buy that, so he ran out there to check every time. And of course, we were both sound asleep in our bed, so that perplexed him quite a bit. So if you fast forward, years later, about 10 years later, they ended up getting a divorce. My mom would leave, and me and my dad would be there by ourselves. And the haunting pretty much escalated from extreme poltergeist activity. There would be coins thrown around the house, levitate off of appliances, appliances going on and off, beams of light coming out of the walls, coming out of the floors, no sources of the light. And by that time, I had a 2-year-old boy, and he had just started to form sentences and started talking. And we were having a discussion upstairs where me and my brother used to sleep, and he was telling me about a man named John that he was playing with. And I had asked him if he was talking about his grandpa, John's. My dad was named John. He said, no, John R., he's dead. And that was like the first coherent sentence he ever said to me. And we have never spoke the firefighter's name out loud since he was born, because this had happened years and years prior. And that fried me. It really messed me up. You know, I wasn't prepared to know the reality of the possibility, even the slightest possibility of that being true. I mean, you always kind of juggle reality versus, is it my imagination, or is it all just not real in your head to that point? But once you are given 100% proof of life after death, especially through the means that it was given to me, it really shook me. So many other stories, many other experiences led into my interest in being in the paranormal. Once my father passed away in 2011 at the age of 54, and his mother and father 2 months before he went, I pretty much decided that, hey, now's the time to see what's really going on. Or is it really people's souls, you know, surviving after death? Is it something else? Can I talk to them? Can I record my own EVPs? Can I do all the stuff that they do on TV? So that, you know, that 2013 is when that started, and here we are now traveling around, filming all of our endeavors, trying to capture evidence of the paranormal, trying to, you know, correlate science with what we're experiencing. And it's been very fulfilling.
It really is. And for me, it gives me hope, you know, because so many people believe there's nothing on the other side. It's just darkness and being eaten away by bugs and worms and so on and so forth. But I know there's more. So it gives me somewhat of a sense of peace. But it is an amazing field to be in, and trying to capture that evidence for others. And I'm so glad that you guys are here doing that. And I'm sorry for what your son went through. I understand completely, because my kids go through that too. It's quite intriguing and interesting indeed. Melissa, what about you? What got you into the field of the paranormal?
Well, my story is a little different. I had an aneurysm when I was 7. And since I was 8, I could see things and hear things that I couldn't explain. And 20, well, maybe. And then when I was 40, I met Justin, and we went from there.
How did you guys meet? Did you see that he had a group and you were interested in volunteering?
We were in an event, and we started talking, and we went on an investigation with him, and him got lost in the woods for 6 hours, and he's like, yeah, you guys can join my group.
It was kind of a thing to where, you know, we come walking out of our endeavor, and you know, we walked back to the parking spots that we were all at with her and the rest of the former members that we had standing there waiting on us, and Ohio Department of Natural Resource officer and some sheriff's officers waiting on us. And the first thing Justin said was, man, she's going to kick me square in the nuts. And she ran up and gave him a big hug, and ran up, grabbed a hold of me, and he was like, man, I'm kind of freaked out. I thought she'd be a little more mad. And she was like, no, you know, you guys got back safe. That's all that matters. I'm just glad you brought him back safe. So, you know, it was very interesting.
It was 90% safe.
I have
yes,
Jessica's
90%
name.
safe.
Yeah, right? And what is your name? I'm sorry.
My name's Derek
Hi,
Schreiner.
Derek.
Hi. I'm Missy's other half.
And the tech leader.
You know, we kind of got into this together. Her story is really based on her stroke that she had when she was 7, and I mean it cracked open an egg that she was kind of wanting to explore. And then we've known each other since middle school. So we've been together quite a while. We've known each other since
wow.
5th grade. Got back together in high school when I moved back into town. But, I got into it a little different. I grew up in a military family. We kind of moved around a lot. And, I started having my first experiences when we would come up to visit my grandmother after my grandpa died. I always would see my grandpa standing at the top of the stairs. And it went on for years and years and years. And as I got older, I would kind of notice weird stuff here and there. Me and my brother had a couple instances where we had ran into what we would think was a guardian angel at times. You're talking to somebody and you turn around and you go to walk away and you turn back around because you're like, hey, what's your name? You're really nice. And they're gone, nowhere to be found. I've experienced that more than once. As I got older, I got out of high school. I joined the local fire department and then got into volunteer EMS. And, that kind of really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that can happen, can go on. And you really start wondering, okay, people are put through these type of situations and scenarios for a reason. And as my career progressed as a volunteer, I started to really mentally think about, okay, everything happens for a reason. Because, when you see the kids your age dying for stupid things, you see people that, are hard on their luck, lose everything they have to a house fire. And, you go into all these scenarios and you start to wonder, why are these things happening? What's the reason for all this to happen to these people? And then you wonder, okay, what happens after they die? Are they still around? Do they still inhabit the areas that they died in? Are they walking behind me, looking over my shoulder because I couldn't do everything that I could do to save them and all this stuff? So it kind of plays with your mind. And then a really good friend of mine on the live squad, her uncle passed away and left her his property. And it just happened to have a cemetery on it. Well, her neighbor was working on the property one day and something, while he was up on the ladder, grabbed a hold of the back of his pants and pulled him off the ladder. There was nobody there. And she called me up. She was like, I got all this freaky stuff going on. And I was like, okay, well, I just bought a neat camera. Let's go out there and just kind of see something, see if we can find out what's going on. Maybe something's up in the house. And we went out there and we had some weird stuff happen. And then the next weekend we went back out again because we were like, okay, we're going to find out something. And we walked back to the cemetery. And as I'm looking back in this cemetery, I see a man walk through the cemetery, just full on apparition. You could see the guy. You could tell he had a mustache. He was wearing old clothes, had a half beard and wouldn't look up, looked straight on, walked straight across. And it was like, yep, I'm sold. There's definitely something going on. So after that, it was just kind of finding stuff out. And then, like she was saying, we started going to events and trying to connect and see if we could find people that were knowledgeable in all this because we were brand new, just wanting to get a feel for it and get into the field. And we went to an event that Justin was at, and he was kind of the speaker at the event to give everybody the information, and then he was going to lead some people on the investigation, and we kind of hit it off from there, and it just progressed as the years went on until we are now interface death.
That's amazing. Jessica, what about you? What got you into the field of the paranormal?
I recall as a child seeing things, knowing things that didn't make sense of how I knew things, and it was more like stepping stones. Walk into a store, I would have extreme anxiety and didn't know really why. I got with Josh a couple years ago, and he was already in the group. And so then I started, expressing interest and talking to Justin, and he was able to help me give me the tools to be able to use, to be able to, feel and communicate and try to figure out, what I was dealing with for all these years. So then I started going on investigations and stuff with them, and it's been pretty interesting.
And it looks like you have a partner there with you as well. What is your name?
Oh, I'm Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
What got you into the paranormal?
Well, I had experiences whenever I was a child, and things that I don't quite remember. My parents remind me of those. But what really got me into the paranormal was a buddy of mine. It was probably, I don't know, 2005, somewhere around there. And a friend of ours that we went to high school with owned a bar. And another friend of mine lived above the bar. So it was just really convenient to go there and hang out and drink. And then we didn't have to drive anywhere. We could just walk upstairs and crash on the couch. But I just remember one evening, we were just all talking, and one of my friends, started talking about ghost hunting and stuff like that, and people that he knew that he went with, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So we started all talking about it, and there were claims that things happened in that bar. It was real old. It was an old coal town, and so we decided to, one night wait till the bar closed, and we had a little mini tape recorder and a little camcorder, and we just walked around and just kind of asked questions and things like that. And then we started, getting some voices on the recorder that weren't any of us. And we would go down in the basement, and we'd go in the main part of the bar, and then we stayed out of the apartment upstairs. He didn't want us to go up there, but that's basically how it started. And then from there, I met some other people with similar interests, and we started a group, and I ended up moving to West Virginia. See, I started out in Pennsylvania. That's where I'm originally from. And when I moved to West Virginia, it took a while before I started looking for a group, and then finally joined a group there. And then I was in a group in Virginia. And it wasn't long after that I started messing around with making my own infrared lights. And I also had a podcast around the same time, and that's how I met Justin, because I contacted him to be on the show. And when he came on the show, and then we just kind of kept in touch after that. And then we started talking about infrared lights and everything, and because of Justin, encouraging me to start selling the lights that I was building, that's how Deadlight was born. So that's how I got into the paranormal, and that's basically how Deadlight came about.
That's amazing. So do you sell your equipment, or you just use it for your group? How does that work?
No, I sell it. I started a company called Deadlight LLC, and I build infrared lighting for night vision cameras. That's
awesome. So, speaking with all of you guys, Justin, Melissa, Jessica, Derek, and Josh, when you were growing up and, in school, did you guys have any issues with making friends as far as people judging you and ridiculing you for experiences you had as a child?
I never brought it up.
Me either.
Me neither.
Yeah. I think a lot of children have similar experiences, growing up. Whether their parents move into an old house, or not everybody builds a new house when they start a new life with the family and everything. So I think there's a lot of kids that have experiences and don't realize that the experience that they're having is or could be paranormal.
Yeah, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she started when she was about 3 years old. And she's shielded right now because she wants to be a child, and I get it. But I would always talk to her about it. I do recall a time telling my mom what I was seeing, and she just kind of brushed it off. So I just I'm not going to say anything. But my daughter has confided in I want to say 2 of her friends, but they just know, they just think it's really, a lot of times, like the kids that you do talk to, they find it very interesting and they're into it, but then, they have to have a nightlight on when you get done talking to them about it. But I mean, she's open about it, but I mean, she's very limited of who she does, talk about it. But I mean, she'll talk to me about it and stuff like that. And I mean, I wish I had that as growing up.
Yeah, I found issues because for me it was normal. My mother was able to see and talk to the dead without all the tools that we use today. And it seems like, and I've heard that due to different experiences that we have as humans, it alters our DNA in some sort of way. Or sometimes we think of it as a gift that's passed down through generation. So my mother had it, I have it, all my kids have it. But when I was in school and I'd share it with people, they'd be like, "Ugh, stay away from her, she's weird." And so I learned not to discuss it until 2012 is when I decided to come out of the paranormal closet. Like, enough is enough, and I'm going to help those out there that need the help. So yeah, it was just kind of frustrating as a kid not having friends because everybody did think I was weird, all these different things I was talking about. Today it seems like it's more commonplace. I don't know if it's because of all the shows that are on TV, how relevant it is as far as you can go on YouTube anywhere and find different shows on the paranormal. Just like yours, Josh. People can listen to your show and tune in and listen to different experiences of the paranormal. Back then it was something, I guess, that was guarded or people didn't talk about. It wasn't the norm. And that's what I like about your bio, trying to take the para out of the paranormal. It's very interesting.
Yeah, our main goal, my main goal that the rest of the group members have adopted, I assume that they feel the same way. I'll let them correct me if I'm wrong, but the very definition of the paranormal, I believe, is wrong. It states simply that, there's something going on outside the scope of scientific understanding. Well, it's not the paranormal's fault that humans don't understand it like that. So, I believe, and I still believe to this day that if we keep pushing the research and if the right minds with the right resources keep trying to discover what's going on, whether that happens or not, they will find and understand the physics involved in a lot of the phenomena that we encounter. We're already trying to take measurements in the field, whether it be EMF, temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, any type of environmental rating that you can get. There's anomalies there. So if you can detect that should leave a breadcrumb trail to, what is the root cause or what is the phenomena that's happening in the environment that's measurable, that has physics involved. So there may be a limitation to what we can understand as far as what type of energy we're dealing with, what type of physics we're dealing with. It may be something, that we won't figure it out for a very long time. But I believe that it isn't outside the possibility of physics. What I'm trying to say is there are physics to understand about it. We just don't know what they are yet.
So how did you come up with the name Interface Death Paranormal?
Before I was getting into the ghost hunting stuff, I was a musician. I was a sound tech, singer, guitarist. I helped set up, all the microphones and all the band equipment, would help record studio recordings. So I was doing all that. And then I wanted to start a project, a heavy metal project, with a friend of mine. And my dad had just passed away, so I was with his mother and father passing right before him. So I was kind of fixated on the whole idea of mortality being finite, and death. The theme of death was pretty prevalent in my mind. So I wanted to convey some type of desire to connect with the dead. So I come up with the term Interface Death as a metal band name. Well, obviously that didn't work out. So once that didn't work out, I started, getting into other creative endeavors and exploring other things. And once I started getting into the ghost hunting and paranormal research stuff, I didn't want to ditch the name. I thought the name fit what I was doing, and I like originality. I seen all these other groups, just doing Paranormal Society to this, or using their zip code or their area code to call their group this, that, or the other. So I just wanted to be original, and that's where the name originated from, was a metal band I was wanting to start.
Yeah, it's interesting. 90210 was supposed to come back out, but perhaps if they had been 90210 Paranormal, they might have made it. Oh, but
that would be interesting.
Right? It just seems like the paranormal is kind of taking over, and for me, it's a relief, getting all that information out there for everybody. As far as that goes, what is your favorite tool to use on an investigation? And we'll start with you, Justin, and then Melissa and Jessica.
I like using the tools that are extensions of our main senses, sight and hearing. So cameras and recorders, audio recorders, is what I like to use. Less of a chance of misinterpreting anything that you may see, as far as data that you would capture. So I think those, a camera and a recorder are my two favorite tools for those reasons.
Melissa and Derek?
I would say, Justin wouldn't agree with me, but I would say the REM pod. But I want to back up what I feel, so I'm like trying to get validation of what I feel. So I'm like, the REM pod may tell me. So I take it everywhere I go.
But I would probably say my camera and myself. It's really hard for me to interact and feel things with myself or see things myself when we're investigating, because we spend a lot of time filming our investigations. So there's a lot of time spent behind the camera trying to get the right shots, right angles. So you kind of remove yourself from that element a lot of times, and you don't get to really experience a lot that's going on. Now, you capture a lot because of what you're doing. You just don't experience a lot. Now, this year was a little different for me because I ended up getting hurt very early in the season. So I was kind of limited to a lot of stuff I could do. And boy, did it bring out a lot of stuff I didn't know I could do, that I could experience, I could feel. Our last episode we just put out, Madison Seminary, had some spots in there showing some of the odd occurrences that I was having going on. And, it's a totally different aspect when you're not engrossed in doing specific tasks. So my camera's a big thing. If I forgot my camera, I'd probably go crazy.
Yeah, I actually lost a camera going up to Vallecito Lake to Pine Valley Resort, and it was a camera that we bought from a pawn shop. And no matter what picture you took, there was always something in the picture. So I don't know if it was connected with the camera or not. But I lost it there and never found it again. But cameras are so amazing. Even if you don't see it at the time, if you look back on it, there's so many things that you can see that were there that you didn't realize in the first place. It is really amazing technology. And even using old school cameras instead of the digital, using different camera media is interesting. Use a still camera with film and use a digital camera and see what the differences are in that too. Have you guys tried that?
In the past, I have. We don't usually use still photography anymore.
It's so outdated, but it's interesting to see the differences of what you capture and what you don't. Jessica and Josh, what are the tools that you like to take on an investigation?
I am not techie at all. Like, we walk in, I throw my arms up, and then like everybody helps me put my gear on. But I mean, I say for myself, the right mindset. Obviously, if you go to a location and you're wanting to pick up things, your mindset has to be set right. So, but yeah, I'm not techie. I'm like, yeah, that thing that beeps. I have no idea.
Where's the beepy thing? I need it.
Right.
For me, I'm with Derek on what he said. When we show up to a location, we know we all have our specific jobs whenever we get there. So we hit the ground running as soon as we pull in. So, as soon as I get there, I'm usually doing drone footage, and we're setting up, time lapses and things like that. And Derek's doing B-roll, and he also does time lapses, and we do hyperlapses, and Justin's doing B-roll and interviews and all that stuff. And then when we finally get through all that, we're strapping on cameras and equipment and things like that to get started. And so for me, it would be the camera, but not necessarily for just investigating. It's to get as much content as we can filming for the film that we put out.
Do you guys ever feel like filming kind of distracts you or takes you away from what originally motivates you in an investigation? And we'll start with Justin.
That's just shaking the head.
Well, it distracts you from certain things. When you're connecting with the paranormal and you're looking for the subtle environmental changes, empathic cues, anything that deals with psi, the gear and the cameras and the tech distract and interfere with that, in my experience. And it seems like that's prevalent throughout our group. But with that being said, there are things that your regular senses and especially your memory is very bad. Most people's memory is very bad. So the recorders and the equipment helps document things objectively, so you don't have to rely on your faulty memory when you're analyzing, reviewing things. So I think the find a balance is key. You don't want to distract your psychics and your sensitive people to the point where they can't function the way you would like them to. So you need to balance that and consider that. But with that being said, you want to allow others in your group who are usually immersed in the tech to experience things too. So what we try to do is trade off a lot of the duties with the cameras and stuff. Sometimes we'll let one of the investigators that usually runs cameras and uses gadgets just have a microphone on them and let them go, so they can feel things. That's all. The only thing that they're paying attention to is their environment, and it very much, in my experience, has an impact.
And I have to agree with you on that. I had an experience Halloween morning. It was just after midnight, and I flew to Arkansas. We went to New Orleans, back to Arkansas, and I missed my flight. So I'm like, hey, let's use this paranormal equipment that I brought. And we're doing the FLIR camera, the night vision monocle, using the Periscope 360, the EMF detector antenna, so many different things. But had we filmed it, instead of going back in your mind repeatedly, trying to pick up different things that you may have overlooked, you could just look back on the camera or the video and, like you said, be able to remember it in time instead of kind of going back repeatedly and picking up different things as you go through your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And there's things that we've done that to help. Everyone wears a face cam. It's like a chest mount for a GoPro, and we run an articulating arm out with the camera facing them. So we're constantly always documenting what they're saying, their facial expressions and everything. And there's a lot of times you'll see subtle details, especially in the psychics in the group, things that are useful information, like eyes rolling in the back of your head when you don't remember that, or, some type of body language, or if an EVP comes across, you can make sure that none of your investigators are creating that noise. As much hands-free you can make your setup, the better it is. So we focus on that. All of our camera equipment is on shoulder rigs. We can operate all of it hands-free. And all the audio recorders that we use, and with the exception of the person recording all the main audio, it's all hands-free too. So we try to make everything hands-free and not as distracting.
That's such a good idea. And you were saying face cameras, so you have it mounted on their shoulders facing towards them. Do you have one facing out as well to get both perspectives?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. You guys rule. I have yet to get there.
Yeah, so we do a lot of our investigations that we're filming. You know, our main objective is to try to get enough footage to put together a documentary and we want to document the haunting, but we also we focus on documenting the history of the location. So, you know, while we're filming, there's a lot of times where we're in an area where you can't cram everybody in there and actually make the filming aspect of it look correct or look, you know, presentable to put out on a video series. So we'll take 2 or 3 of us and go film for the documentary, and one of us will go out by themselves and investigate. Or we'll take 2 and 2. You know, 2 will go to do an interview or to do one of the psychic walkthroughs. And like Justin will take Jess for her walkthrough, and say me and Josh will go somewhere else in the building completely away from where they're at and investigate for a little bit, just to kind of get our feel for the location, get away from the actual filming aspect to where, you know, we're not focused on camera work, placement, and all this. We're focused on investigating. And a lot of times we try to do it with minimal extra equipment. You know, your commercialized equipment that's out there that's sold all over the market. You know, we try not to use too much of that, because anymore, a lot of it we're finding out gives a lot of false positives. Some of it does give a lot of actual evidence that we can use, but a lot of it's false positives. You know, data loggers are big. A lot of groups don't use data loggers, but you know, we started using the EDI Plus, which, you know, I kind of like. I think it's pretty cool. But a lot of like REM pods, stuff like that, our wireless microphone set off REM pods like crazy. So you can't really use those and have it be actual data, because you don't know if the wireless mic set it off or was it actually something paranormal setting it off.
That's why I like the Periscope 360, because unlike the EMF antenna that can either just beep or you can set it to play like a musical song the longer that they contact it, you can just walk by and, like you said, the static off your body from your legs rubbing together or your feet going along the carpet or whatnot, that could set it off. With the 360, it seems completely different than that. You can't just touch it or cause it to go off, and it seems to pick up on energy differently. It's pretty interesting. But I like all the different tools because, like you guys were saying earlier, it kind of backs up what you're doing, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, so on and so forth. It's just so nice to have these different pieces of equipment to gather different data during the investigation, to be able to compile it to say, here, this is what we got. Do you guys use a paranormal puck or a ghost box or anything like that during investigations?
Someone else can answer that if they want.
The paranormal puck, no. We have used spirit boxes on occasion. The SB11 is mainly what we use when we do use it, but we use it totally different than anybody else. You know, most investigators, most teams, if they use the SB11 or the SB7, they will scan frequencies on whatever rate they prefer. We don't scan frequencies. We will find a station, typically an AM station, because FM is normally crowded. So we'll find an AM station that actually has no radio coming through whatsoever. It's just flat white noise. And we'll set it on that station and just run white noise. And if it comes through just white noise, you can rule out any radio interference. That's the other reason we don't scan. Now, have we had success? Very seldom. A lot of times what I've seen us get is you get a bunch of white noise, but you'll get an EVP behind you that didn't come through the white noise. It just comes outside of the white noise. So you're playing that, hoping to get something, but not very often do you get anything.
Yeah, I will add that we don't use anything that is like Ovilus oriented, you know, the things that just spit out words. The claims are that if there's an environmental fluctuation, that it will spit out a word. I mean, that's that definition is flawed from the get-go. I mean, if it raises a degree, or if there's some type of electromagnetic interference or anything like that, it's going to be spitting out stuff. It's got an accelerometer in it usually, which means if you move the device, it'll spit out something. I mean, you're just asking for randomness from the get-go. We stay away from randomness. We want control. We want, to have our independent variables clean of contamination and false positive potential, because our brains play tricks on us. There's pareidolia is a thing. If we ask for a name and we get a name on a spirit box, we cannot assume that it was a paranormal source giving us that information. The device is designed to pick up radio frequencies, so it's just not good in our eyes to contaminate and leave the possibility of misinterpretation there. So we try to be as scientific as possible, and we try to be as careful as possible of what we use. And generally when we go into a location, we're just using our senses. We're using cameras and high grade cameras, high grade audio equipment to see if things happen, because paranormal hauntings and people experience things, their radios aren't going haywire. They're seeing a shadow figure down the hallway. They're hearing a voice. Maybe they got scratched. That's what we're trying to document and experience for ourselves. We're not trying to decode some message out of a radio that scans the FM band. We're not trying to sense if static electricity comes along and, associate that. Now, there are reasons why you would want to search for such measurements in the environment. So that's why we use data loggers. We just sit it out there, let it read all the information, and see if there's any anomalous fluctuations that happens when there's an EVP, or if there's anomalous fluctuation when you hear footsteps, or if something flies across the room, for example. That's when we use the gadgets to measure things. But we generally don't use the stuff that can be misinterpreted very easily.
Do you guys ever use any sort of cell phone app, like, let's say, Ghost Radar Legacy, where it actually records the words? And as far as the ghost box goes, a lot of times when you are sweeping through stations, if you get a response that goes over overlaps several stations, that could be an entity speaking, and I've heard that done, especially with Bill Hauser and his ghost box sessions. It's really mind-blowing. And with the paranormal equipment on your phone app, we had success with it at one time, but otherwise it's been a big miss. Have you guys ever tried to incorporate your cell phone apps?
Not really. Not even me personally. Not even early on in my research, I haven't. I don't know what Derek and Missy and Josh used prior to Interface Death. They can speak on that. But as far as this spirit box and the audio coming in across multiple stations, what a lot of people don't understand is frequency modulation. For example, FM radio. There's a bandwidth. So if your favorite station is 101.9, you're going to receive that radio station on a few bands prior or before above 1.9 and below 1.9. There's a certain bandwidth that you will get the frequency to come through. So you cannot rely on FM band to determine whether audio comes across just one channel, if you follow me. So it can come across on 101.1, 101.2, 3, 4, and so on, and pass what the station. And also, you will get multiple stations that are broadcasting adjacent to each other, and you'll get the snippets from each one of those stations, and they can form a sentence because they're essentially phonetics being jumbled in together. So the brain will interpret those phonetics as words too. So there's too much room for subjective interpretation. We try to stay away from subjective interpretation.
Do you guys use dowsing rods at all for your paranormal investigations?
I haven't, but I think some of the others have. And we do try to run experiments. We talked about it, right, Derek and Josh? We talked about the dowsing rods. You can talk about it.
I had used them before in a previous group, and the problem with those is you use them enough and you can learn to manipulate them yourself, and you don't even realize you're doing it. So I think if we were going to use those just to try them out as an experiment, it would have to be something that would hold them steady so that you can't manipulate them in any way. We haven't tried that yet. That is definitely something that I do want to try. But other than that, no, we don't use the dowsing rods at all.
There is some stuff that I've seen filmed that I've seen in person that makes you wonder about the dowsing rods. For years, they've been used for water witching and to find pretty much anything that you want to find that's hidden under the ground, whether it be treasure, anything, right? So there's something going on there because the consistency of some people that are water dowsers, for example, can be extremely high. So I did some research and I ran across the scientific journal that did a science research experiment with people who dowsed, and they saw a success rate higher than statistically would be allowed if it was chance. And they stated that it is possible that the geomagnetics that the Earth gives off can be altered just enough by water that someone who is sensitive to the geomagnetics can pick up on subconsciously. So if that's occurring, when they subconsciously feel that perturbation, that variance, they move the rods to cause them to cross. That's what the scientific journal found. So if that's true, we're actually using our body and not the rods. The rods are just kind of like the needle on the gauge. So if that's true, that's very, very interesting because there's been people that could display that they have abilities to feel and be sensitive to environmental, things like that, to natural environmental anomalies like that. So I feel like that's very possible. I've seen people, walk over here and then all of a sudden the rods will point to them, and then they walk over here and then they can get the rods to go point at them, and they're not moving it, but the rods move. So when you do experiments like blindfold experiments, if you blindfold somebody during a Ouija board experiment, it won't work. But when you take the blindfolds off, it works. So there's something subconscious, unconscious going on with that phenomena that you're not aware of, but you're doing. It's called the ideomotor effect. But with the dowsing rods, there's something that's possibly going on there that's not just, you're doing it and not knowing it. I actually feel like it's possible that you're picking up on things and moving it according to what you're picking up on.
Yeah, it's kind of like the spirit or entity or whatnot that you're communicating with gives you different ticks or tacks or whatnot to make a move a certain way. When I was little, my granny taught us how to douse for water with a witching stick, which could be applewood, hickory stick, so on and so forth. I did not discover the copper dowsing rods until I believe it was 2014. And the first time I used them, it was insane, the amount of energy that was coming through it and how different it was from, the old hickory stick or the apple sticks or whatever you're using to douse for water. But the copper rods can be used for the same thing, but they're saying that the copper is easily manipulated by spiritual entities, so on and so forth, to be able to give you answers. Is that through your body itself, like you were saying, as with the Ouija board, or is it through the rods themselves? I know
that's the question.
Yeah, at one point, the rods felt so heavy in my hands that I was, shaking, trying to keep them up. And the lady was like, are you okay? Why are you shaking? And it's they feel so heavy. It feels so heavy to hold these, even though it's just, a pin cut or some sort of plastic cut, and then you have the copper rods through there. This doesn't weigh anything, but all of a sudden you're feeling this immense amount of weight on them. It's very intriguing, and for me, that was the first tool that I incorporated into my group, Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, and we've just built upon that equipment slowly but surely, and I've told many people, you can go broke doing this. But it's important to have that backup equipment. You know, I like to take my gut instinct on an investigation and then whip out the different tools one by one, depending on how many people I have with me. If I have my group with me, it's much easier. I don't have to be distracted by the different tools that we use. But when I'm on my own, I prefer certain tools to use first and then go on from there. But it's very interesting and intriguing, and there's so many different questions out there as far as how does this work? What exactly is happening? Is a spirit giving, my subconscious or whatnot different signals for these rods to move a certain way, or are they manipulating the rods themselves? Something we may never know.
Yeah. So something with that being said, to infer that it's the body doing it, directing the tool to do that. It doesn't matter. Like, it started off as branches and sticks. Okay. They're working for these people just as well as copper. So if you think about it, there's no difference in the material. It's all in your mind. Whatever you're perceiving is better, it's going to work better for you. Does that make sense? Yes, some old timers might say, "Oh, screw those copper wires. This branch is way better, and it will work way better for them if in comparison to using copper wires." And then you may come along and say, "Hey, these copper wires, they conduct electricity a lot better than that stick. They work better for me, so they're going to work better for you than a stick would." But the whole time, it's your mind and your body doing it, and your belief.
It's very interesting, and there's so many questions, but I think the longer we do it, the more we use these different tools and techniques, the more we'll learn from it. But yeah, there's so many questions. It's virtually insane. But I'm so glad you guys.
Well, we cross things off lists, and I think that's important to do. No matter what you're using, you want to try to measure the success rate and the efficiency of each tool and each method. So if you're going to test dowsing rods as a means to indicate some presence of spirit or what have you, you want to be able to back it up with something else, environmental readings, something else, whatever it is, but you want to be able to measure the success rates of these things. You have to have some type of ability to quantize each thing if you're going to study it. If not, then it's just going to go off of whatever you believe. So we throw that measurement factor in there to try to objectively see what's more effective, what's not, what's real, what's psychology, and so on and so forth.
Well, on that note, we are going to go to our first musical break. Right now we have Michaelin Hay, Pins and Needles, Devil You Know, and Michaelin Hay is a high school Canadian phenom. We also have Tracy Cruz, and Tracy Cruz is from the Bay Area, California section of the United States. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this musical break.
Talking on pins and needles, every word through a microscope. You keep stomping down on the ground while I've been stuck on this tightrope. I just wanna say what I wanna say without your sentence. I'm not willing to do the time when I'm innocent, and I'm innocent. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. Dancing on shattered glass, kicking the pieces all around. My safety has been broken. This is now a hunting ground. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, 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 up. Your troubled heart bleeds like a river. It's rushing towards fields painted greener. It doesn't see the demons behind, praying you're getting close to the line, so they can get their hands on love and trade it off for silver. The curtain's nice, but what it hides is worse than sticks and stones. Before you climb the fence tonight, look through the microscope. Better the devil you know. 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 Your nervous spine is crawling with shivers. You're standing right in the eye of a blizzard. You're inches from a shelter, so near to warmth of a home in a chandelier, shining down its light on love, wishing you'd be closer. The curtain's nice, but what it hides is worse than sticks and stones. Before you climb the fence tonight, look through the microscope. Better the devil you know. 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 Before you climb the fence tonight, look through the microscope. Better the devil you know. 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 screaming really must be love. I'm talking true, I'm talking real, and I felt it in my heart and soul. You make me feel so good inside. You make me feel so good inside. Now what is this that's happening? I don't even know you anymore. Oh, yeah. Changes moving through every day. Yeah. And I don't even know what we're fighting for. Our brighter days turn to sleepless nights. Our loving ways have turned to endless fights, and we can't seem to compromise. We try so hard to make things right. Yesterday, we'll erase all some turns. Can't we turn back? Hands on side. You are my life. Now what is really happening? Changes are moving through everything. Changes. I will accept you for who you are, all your flaws and your scars. Because I love you too much to let you go. You help me grow. I will accept you for who you are, all your flaws. Because I love you too much to let you go. You help me grow. I will accept you for who you are, all your flaws and your scars. Because I love you too much to let you go.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Late Night in the Rockies on We Are Paradox Media, which you can find on Facebook, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Periscope, Spreaker, so many other different genres of listening. We have Justin, Melissa, Derek, Jessica, and Josh on from Interface Death Paranormal. Hey guys, welcome back. It's been great having you on the show tonight. I may have lost them. Hold on one second. Rorge. Uno momento, por favor. I'll have to be calling these guys back. So I really did miss all of you guys while I was away in Arkansas and New Orleans. Very interesting trip indeed. If you missed any of it, you can find it on my Facebook page under Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson. And let's see here. Wow. Can't believe I lost my guess. Let me get them back on here shortly. You can also call in with any questions you may have at 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596. You can also find us on Facebook under We Are Paradox Media. Hope you guys have been enjoying the show so far. All right. Slowly but surely, I thought I had it going, but I was off in the outfield. We shall have Interface Death Paranormal on here shortly. I did a password change, and I think that kicked us all out. Joining call now.
One piece of picture.
What was like 6 pieces?
Hey guys!
Hello.
I somehow lost you, but I'm so glad that you're back.
We stayed on the call because we figured that you'd be back.
I am here.
We were just talking amongst ourselves.
Right? Present and accounted for. So where exactly are you guys located?
Well, I am in Hillsboro, Ohio, and they are not in Hillsboro.
We're in Aurora, Indiana, about 40 minutes away from Cincinnati. We sit right on the Ohio River.
And we are in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. It's the southeastern part of the state.
Wow, you guys cover a broad area.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you guys get to come together for investigations?
Well, generally, we have a season or period of time where we do all of our principal photography and pickups and everything, which usually goes from March, May to about October. And we get together a lot. At least we film at least once a month. We go to events 3 or 4 a year. Sometimes, a couple times a year we'll get together and just hang out, grill out, But we try, every time we get together, we usually try to get some of our film stuff done. We'll do interviews, we'll do pickups, we'll, do something. But we, outside of that, Derek and Missy live only an hour and a half away from me, an hour and a half drive. So they visit me much more than Josh and Jess get to. I only made it down to Rupert, West Virginia twice this year. And that was the first time I ever actually went down there to where he lived. So we kind of felt like, he's always the furthest ones that has to drive out of the way to, meet up. So we definitely made it a priority to go down there once or twice this year to give him a break behind the wheel of a truck.
Yeah, road time. I don't care what anybody says. You get jet lag, whether you're in the air or on the road. It really does add up. Where can our listeners find you as far as watching your videos? I know you're on Facebook. Do you guys have a YouTube channel as well?
Yep. We have YouTube. We live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch. We have a weekly show and then a bi-weekly show. All of our stuff is on our website, interfacedeath.net. You can watch all our videos. You can get access to all of our social media platforms, get all the information on what we do, how we do it, what we do it with, all of our bios, everything. There's even an app that goes along with our website you can use to better navigate our online store, chat with us, and just makes it a cool experience versus your normal website experience with the group that you're trying to engage with. And Deadlight LLC is only accessible through the Facebook page, Deadlight LLC, on Facebook. We have not launched a website for Deadlight yet because it's only Josh building the lights, only one guy, and there's such a high demand for them that he's months behind. So we can't just throw up an online store. I tried that once, and he put it into that pretty quick.
Make it stop. I can't do it, Captain.
See, I work full time, so when I come home from work, I'm in the shop. So I'm in the shop a few hours in the evenings, and then usually on the weekends, if I'm not working, I'm in and out of the shop all weekend, trying to get things done and get ready to ship things out or testing or whatever I need to do.
He's in the shop right now.
Right?
Yeah.
When you do your testing, do you do it on your own, or do you turn it over to different teams? How exactly do you test your equipment?
Normally when we have something new come out, Justin will test it, and normally it's our ideas, passing ideas back and forth, or Justin will contact me and he'll say, "Hey, can we try this, or can you figure out how to do this?" And so I'll put something together and send it to him, and we'll test it. But the whole group has some form of light that I built. So we have, everybody has our own lights. So that's mostly where our testing comes from.
Well, that's awesome. Do you have UV as well, or an IR and UV combination light?
Yeah, I haven't done much UV. I haven't had many requests for UV. I've done full spectrum. I do a light that is IR and white light in the same light. I put UV in there. I've had a request. I have an order coming up that wants red lights. So I can do, just about. I can do any color that would be available.
So as far as the team, with all of you combined, what was the first investigation that you guys went on together, and what sort of evidence did you pick up?
Waverly, first time, right?
Yep.
As a team, it was Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and it was cool. Me personally, I had probably one of the most profound personal experiences when I first went to Waverly. Josh and Derek had been there several times prior. I think Josh was there at least one other time before he met up with us. Derek had been there 2 or 3 other times with public events. And this was the first time Derek had did a private. Is that right, Derek?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was the first private we had ever booked.
Right. And I was researching the place. It's huge. People are there every day unless it's Halloween season. So I'm like, probably not going. They're not going to care about us. Put my camera down. It's me chilling, going through the tour. So that allowed me not to be distracted at all. So what ended up happening was I was walking down the hall, first floor, heading towards the morgue, and I was bombarded by a very immense feeling of imminent death. I felt like someone just came up to me and said, "You have a week to live. You have 5 minutes to live." Compounding over and over and over. Just imagine thousands of people knowing that they're going to die at any moment. That's what I was feeling. And it was really bad. And Tina's like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Well, I'm experiencing this." She's like, "What, do you need to leave?" I'm like, "No, that's why I'm here. I don't care if this kills me. This is for a reason. This is why I'm here." So, I just experienced elevated heart rate, profound sadness, and it's really hard to explain what it would feel like to know that you're about to die by suffocating in your own lung fluids. It's not really a good idea to even try to do that. So it eventually subsided, but I started connecting with some entities there, and I was leading, some of my group members and pointing out some of the things to Tina and the rest of the group what I was picking up on. I felt like Amy Allen walking through the place, when I typically don't do that. And I've done that more and more since, I'm not just the science guy. I'm also very interested in studying the psychic phenomena, figuring out the team's abilities, what they can do, how efficient they are, how to make it better, how to make them better at what they do, including myself. So that was a main goal this whole year, was to explore and understand the psychic phenomena through not only our own abilities, but what spirits are able to do once they have no body. Because I believe that in order to understand ghosts, spirits, and stuff, you have to understand the metaphysical and the non-physical aspects of the human while they're alive, because I think that's what survives death. I think all those telepathic, empathic abilities, abilities to move objects, through telekinesis. I think people alive can do it, and I think the dead can do it, and that's a common denominator. So I'm not closing my mind off to the possibility that all these things are real, because, like I said, my mother has displayed all kinds of abilities to me and proven them to me. So I know it's real, but I want to know if I can quantize and label and explain things scientifically, which has been interesting. It's not easy.
No, not at all. And it takes time and endurance. It takes so much energy in this field, and I'm so glad that you're looking into that. Melissa and Derek, what was your experience on this investigation?
Ours was kind of normal, I guess, from my standpoint. I think that was the first time that she had actually went to Waverly and used her abilities inside the building. Because, like Justin was saying, we had been there 3 or 4 times prior on public events that you pay and you go, and they cram like 50 to 60 people in that building and expect you to investigate. And it's really hard to do, and a lot of that stuff is done at odd times of the year where there's not a whole lot of stuff going on or the weather's crappy. I know we did one where it was, I think the ambient air temperature outside was 14 below zero without the wind chill. We did that. It was a public event, but it was classified as a class. And we did that one before we joined up with Justin, and it was horrible. I mean, you couldn't investigate nothing because it was too cold. But I went through kind of knowing a lot of stuff, which for me, I don't like to go to locations and know a ton about it. I want to know a little bit, but I don't want to know a ton about it. And knowing a lot about Waverly and being there multiple times, you kind of get, the preconceived notion of this is going to happen, that's going to happen. You've experienced stuff in this place before in certain spots, so you want to hit them spots again. And I didn't feel like I had a whole lot really happen that time.
For me, excuse me, it was kind of quiet for me. I had a similar experience the first time I was there a couple of years before that, and I believe it was on the second floor, and it sounded like somebody coughing. And it was kind of hard to tell where it was coming from, but whenever you would walk, toward the other end or where you thought it was, then it happened again, and it kind of sounded like it was behind you. Other than that, the second time that I was there was my first investigation with interface death. It was just really quiet for me everywhere that it went. I mean, I did a solo session up on the 4th floor, and it was just really quiet up there. One thing about Waverly, though, it's close to an airport, and even though it's kind of back off out of the way from the town, sound still carries there, and you can hear the cars and the airplanes and everything going on. Now it does quiet down the later it gets, but you still have it, the beeping horns, and you can still see lights off in the distance and stuff like that. So you kind of have to take all that ambient noise and everything going on around you in consideration whenever you're, reviewing things or thinking that you heard something, but it was really something, out in the city area.
We did experience and record the coughing again when we were all together. Mm-hmm. I know it was me, Josh, and a former member of ours that experienced that. I don't know if Derek and Missy, they did record a cough, but they didn't realize that's what it was because it can be distant and so faint, it's hard to be sure.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Was that a cough or was that something else?
Yeah, it was definitely a cough, and it's all on the second floor, which was interesting. And I think the only other things we maybe got 1 or 2 EVPs, and that's it.
You had something interesting happening whenever you were doing the live stream. Remember you were
Oh yeah. I was going to get to that, but that's definitely worth bringing up. The first time we were there, I was like, okay, I'm going to go up to the 4th floor. It's supposed to be one of the most active spots at Waverly. And I'm going to live stream this stuff right to Facebook. So I go up there, and I'm live streaming, and I'm up there for an hour, and it's quiet, and it's definitely a lot more stressful. I was first time being there. It's dark. I'm in one of the most haunted locations allegedly that people talk about. So I'm waiting. Didn't someone tell me that something was going to happen? I think Missy told me that something's going to happen to me, that she saw it. She dreamt about it or picked up on it. So I'm waiting for that thing to happen. So about 50 minutes go by, and all of a sudden I'm hearing a siren that sounds like a bomb siren. If you ever listen to the old World War II bomb sirens, I heard a bomb siren. I heard a whistle, which is something that's very common up there. Even Chad Kalick caught the whistling from the American Ghost Hunter, the guy that did the American Ghost Hunter documentary. I don't know. Some people may know Chad Kalick. He even heard that. A lot of people's heard the whistle. So it kind of led me out to the balcony area. And when I went out there, I heard the raid siren. And at that point, I was really kind of freaking out because I've never experienced that before. And then I heard something moving behind me, and that got my attention. So I eventually made my way back through the rooms from the balcony into the main hallway again. And then I heard what sounded like the PA system upstairs. I heard a man speaking through it. And it was the craziest thing I probably have heard. That wasn't an EVP, and it came through the live stream, and it blew me away. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's so awesome that you were able to record and document it. Yeah,
a lot of people like the live streams nowadays. They kind of live or ghost hunt vicariously through the live streams and through your videos. It's fun for them that don't get the chance to, don't have the time or money or whatever to do it, so they can enjoy it through your live streams and video content.
Have you found that you get more people watching on Facebook than YouTube? I know YouTube used to be number one as far as people going and watching different videos and such. Have you found that it's gone more towards the Facebook area?
It really has changed. The algorithm on YouTube and the way people use YouTube has changed so much. It's shifted to a lot of people that are already very, very popular, that's doing a certain type of content, and the people that play ads on that type of content has changed drastically. So the smaller channels and the more obscure channels like paranormal channels started to struggle. So Facebook became a platform where everybody can just grab their smartphone and, live stream, and they have a lot of users. So Facebook is still a very, very popular way to live stream. But we try to multi-stream. We stream on Facebook, YouTube, because we use multiple platforms, and certain people only do YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. But I think you're right. I think for the smaller content creator, Facebook is much better for that. But the numbers that you get can be misleading. Somebody can just scroll through their timeline, through their news feed, and watch your video just for a second and then just go away. And that's counted as a view, where they're just scrolling. So a lot of the views you get on Facebook aren't actually views. They just scrolled past your video for a second or two. But YouTube, definitely, if you click on it and watch it, you're definitely at least got to click and a view that way. And once you get into the YouTube algorithm, you can become successful, but it's much harder for YouTube, in my experience.
Well, yeah, when you first start off, you only get 15 minutes. And then once you make so many videos or get so many views, then you get to go longer. But they kind of suffocate you at the beginning with, you get a 15-minute video. When investigations last much longer, so you have several different 15-minute videos kind of coagulating together to make one big video, and then eventually you get to make larger ones. But I think it's important to have different genres, different places that people can go, because different people like different things. But I have found a lot of people are going to Facebook as opposed to YouTube. I don't know. People are on there all the time. It's pretty insane. So what was the most mind-bending experience you guys have had on investigation, which left you no question as far as there is life on the other side?
As a group, what would, does anything ring a bell for you guys? I'm trying to think. Because I know there's plenty that's happened to me outside of interface stuff,
Yeah,
but
there's
as a team,
there's quite a few places that we've been to as a group that I would think were pretty explosive. I mean, Randolph County Infirmary was really, really good. Our last investigation of this year for our feature film was in freaking insane. There's been quite a few. Old Licking County Jail was really good when it come to experiences and the stuff that happened in the building. We've hit a lot of places that we walk out of at the end of a night or even the next day, and you're shaking your head and you're like, we've got to come back because there's more to whatever we just experienced.
What's interesting is I don't think there's been a location where all of us, except for Randolph County Infirmary. So that's a good example. Not all of us have that, oh, wow, that just sold it for me experience. Right. It's usually 1, 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky of the group of the 5. But I think Randolph County Infirmary, we all had experiences. We all were a part of, a wow moment where we're like, okay, well, it just happened like that, and you just get lucky because we believe that paranormal phenomena that strong, that powerful is rare. And you just have to do it for a long time to get to that point where you experience it all together as a group, because you're trying to split up most of the time. The paranormal is so strange that it will happen for you and maybe not the person next to you. And it makes it difficult for everybody to experience something to that degree.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good question, though.
To kind of put it into perspective, I mean, if you think about it, you take a location like Randolph County Infirmary that technically isn't super widely known. It's not a big moneymaker. People aren't jumping through hoops to get in there. And then you take a location like Waverly Hills Sanatorium that's widely known all over the planet. And people are paying oodles of money to get in that building because, it's the most haunted place in the area. And, we had more profound experiences through everybody in the group that was there at Randolph County Infirmary than we did Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Technically for anybody that's going to pay the big money to go to somewhere like Waverly Hills, be expected to be let down. I mean, that's, you're going to experience something maybe, but to me, for the money, it's a letdown. Ohio State Reformatory, same thing. Been there. That place costs oodles of money. It's a hell of a cool location for the historical aspect and to see it in person and be like, whoa, this place is awesome. For the paranormal aspect, it's a letdown.
So what do you guys think? Like, do you think that the big, more investigative place we go to are more of a letdown and the ones like RCI are more productive because of that reason. What do you guys think about that?
I believe that.
Yeah, I do too. I like the places that are kind of flying under the radar, the ones that aren't as well known. Like the Anchorage. Whenever we were at Anchorage, even though I didn't have, experiences there, just to go there and film. Because for me, it's not just the investigating; it's the whole thing. It's the doing the photography and the aerial shots with the drone, the setting up the time lapses, all that stuff combined is it just adds to the experience. So I can walk out of that place thinking it was quiet. I had a quiet night. I didn't have any experiences, but I can still walk out of there feeling that it was worth the money because I got to experience the location.
You did experience stuff at the Anchorage, though.
Mm-hmm.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember now.
It's been so long ago.
Watch the video.
See,
Exactly.
I get through all the footage, so I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you walked into the slave quarters and felt something. The keyboard turned on and off,
right.
And you heard footsteps, disembodied footsteps. You actually had experiences.
All I remember him saying was his calves were sore because he kept having to go up and down the
Yeah,
stairs.
walking up and down the stairs. Yep. Yeah, because he was doing that time lapse. We come up with the concept, and Josh ended up having to set up the whole time lapse because I got busy doing something else. Mm-hmm. It was like, oops.
You show him a picture of the Anchorage, and he's like, "Oh, that's Calf Destroyer. I remember that."
Yes, and that's the thing, when we go into locations, a lot of times we go into locations and we know we're filming, but it's the experience. Not only the paranormal aspect, but it's the experience as a whole. Filming a documentary about a historical location, but you're also doing the paranormal research. You've got the psychics doing all of their research, and it's the whole experience. And all these places that are off the path that not a lot of people traffic to, they've not been over investigated or hit by TV shows left and right. They're the ones that yield the best results, and they're the ones that you walk up to and it's just wow. You walk up to it and it wows you. You walk away and you're still wowed by the location as you're driving away from it.
One thing that's mind blowing is what happened at Madison. We're all standing there, and Justin's the only one that heard that growl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To have somebody in the center of a group of people have an experience, and nobody else heard it. Right. He was the only one that heard it, and to him it was loud.
Yeah. To everybody else,
recording it wasn't loud.
Right.
It just sounded like it was like maybe, I don't know. You had to be right there to hear it, and Missy and Jess were talking to each other at the time, and Josh, Derek, and Joe were actually down the hall into adjacent room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes, it could be like right in your ear, or it seems like it is. You can feel the energy, you can hear the noise, but to your equipment, it doesn't pick up quite as the same as a natural experience. Just like when you're taking a picture of a sunset or a sunrise, mm-hmm. It's never as beautiful in the picture as it is to your eye.
Yeah, the subjective experience, like when you're walking around in the dark and you're expecting something to happen, your senses are heightened. So a pin drop may sound like a cannonball hitting the floor. You know what I mean? Later in the night, Missy and I were investigating at Madison Seminary by ourselves, and she accidentally kicks the door, and it scared the bejesus out of me. And and your senses are so heightened, and you're kind of stressed out a little bit. You know what I mean? Because of your scenario.
Do you guys always work in darkness? I mean, a lot of people leave the lights on. Some people turn the lights off because I think it does heighten your sense as far as your vision, your hearing, so on and so forth. And do you prefer to investigate at night as opposed to day? And what are the big differences that you've found with that?
Well, with me personally, we have to do a lot. Since we shoot films, we have to rely on daylight. So we're in there shooting B-roll, shooting drone photography. You can't shoot night drone photography. If you did an infrared, you would have to have a super bright light that you couldn't put on your drone because it's too heavy, so it just wouldn't work. So you have to do that stuff during the day, and you do experience things through the day. There's really no difference in frequency, I think. I think, like you said, when you're doing it at night, things are quieter. There's less traffic. There's less people out walking around making noise. So, and then your senses get heightened. So you may pick up on a sound that was quiet that you may have missed during the day because there's so much noise and your attention span's not quite so heightened. But, sometimes we're forced to investigate at night for several reasons. Working during the day, a lot of people, only have time to do it at night. Contamination is less at night. It's just, that's how it ends up doing. And people who consume paranormal media want to see you doing it during the night because, let's face it, they're wanting to see something that's going to detach them from their own reality. They want it to be enjoyable. So it might be a little scarier to watch a group of people walk through a place at night versus the day. So, all those elements apply. But what do you guys think? I mean, do you think – I know when we do residentials, we do it in the day and the night because a lot of times they just report it during the day. I mean, I guess these guys can tell you what they found personally on their cases that they do outside interface death before they got into the group.
A lot of it is, I think perception. You can experience stuff in the daytime, no doubt. A lot of people have experienced stuff in the daytime. We have stuff go on here at our house, and while I'm at work, she's experiencing it during the daytime. And then when I come home and it's still light outside, I see stuff, hear stuff. But a lot of it. I think the main reason a lot of stuff's done once it's dark is your senses are going to be heightened more in the dark. When you're walking around a place, all the lights are out and you can't see nothing. Your senses all around are 100% more heightened than they would be in the daytime because you've taken one element away from yourself already. Once you take your great eyesight in the daylight away, now you're having to rely on your ears, your smell, your sense of touch, everything else. You take one sense away and it completely heightens everything else on your body. So it kind of, I think that plays a lot into why most investigations happen in the dark. That and just the scariness of it, the creep factor. People love that creep factor for some reason.
Well, a lot of these pay and play places, they're all, in the evening. I think that the only one that I know of that offers a daytime investigation is Ashmore Estates in Illinois. But most of them are, like a 8 to 4. Now there is some other places that we've gone to that would let us in a little early so that we could do our daytime filming for the B-roll and the drone shots and stuff like that. But there's a lot of those places you don't start until, early evening.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the psychics research we do is in the daytime. When they walk through the location, it's usually daytime unless we're running behind or didn't get there until late, depending on what the hours were for the investigation. But yeah, a lot of stuff happens when, like when me and Jessica does our walkthroughs, and you'll get things come across because she's connecting with the location. And in our experience, you'll get voice phenomena happening. You will hear things will happen, and it doesn't matter if it's day or night.
Yeah, one of our best investigations and the best evidence that we gained as a group was during the day, very early in the morning. And there's a misconception that you just go at night, but I think it is because of the heightened senses and the kind of spookiness about it. But hauntings don't just happen at night. They happen whenever. But it's very interesting what kind of evidence you can gather throughout the day. When you guys go into an investigation, do you like to go in cold, or do you like to know the background of the property or house or place you're going into?
Well, we'll let Jess speak on this first because it's different for each investigator.
For me, it's different for me. What we try to do with myself is we talk about the location, but I don't want to know any history on it. We don't talk about anything about the location. Justin usually calls me through Skype, and then he starts showing me pictures and records the call of myself doing remote viewing. And then we go to the location. I don't usually step a foot into a location until all the cameras and everything, and then I start, doing my walkthrough of what I'm picking up on. But I don't know anything about the locations or anything like that. And I mean, like I said, I just started like a year ago, and I wasn't into the paranormal field, so I don't know any history on any of these. Like, you guys were talking about Waverly, like that's the most information that I heard. I didn't know what Waverly was until you guys were talking about it earlier.
So she's perfect for our psychic experiments.
Right? I prefer to go in cold and then turn in my evidence and see how it adds up to the history of what has happened there and what the hauntings are.
Yeah, it's a way to stay objective because your mind, power suggestion's a thing.
Yeah, your subconscious is very powerful. The mind is a powerful thing, and I think it's better to go in cold and not have a clue of names or happenings, so on and so forth. And it's pretty intriguing what you can pick up, for sure.
Yeah, it can get, when you're doing documentaries, it's really hard to manage that because I have to know some things. I have to talk to people, interview people, telling stories and information about the location. So we do what we can to not know as much as there is to know, but I'm usually the guy that's stuck knowing a crap ton about the locations every time we go in because I'm producing the films, directing them, doing all the logistics and location scouting. Me, Derek, and Josh get together and do location scouting as a team. But, for me to know where to put the cameras and all of that, I have to, know a lot of information that I probably would rather not know. But, there's just no way around not hearing what this tour guide's telling me as I'm filming it. Haven't figured out how to do that yet.
So normally we have a production meeting. We try to have it the weekend before. And most of it, we really don't talk about history. Most of it is, okay, we want these kind of shots, and even then you still don't know until you get there and actually see the place and you're, things catch your eye. There's certain things that stick out that you want to get on camera, but there's things like that you can't really plan out. But we get a basic plan of what we're going to do. So as soon as we get there, we're utilizing the time that we have to get that stuff done in the daylight before we got to start investigating.
Like, you don't even want to know, anything about the history of the location.
No, I do like to go in cold because if I do have an experience, I'd like to compare that to something. And it just kind of gives me that validation that, hey, somebody else had that experience and I didn't even know. But most of the time I don't get the history or the tour of the place because I'm doing stuff outside while that stuff is going on. There's just really not a whole lot of time to do a walkthrough before we get started.
Like, even when we're traveling, if I'm starting to pick up on stuff, I'm like, do you want to know? He'd be like, no, write it down in your book. I don't want to know. Don't tell me. I know. I'm like, no, it's a good one. Let me tell you. No,
even when we're traveling to the location, I mean, we're filming. We're filming, road footage. We're filming in-cab footage. We've filmed loading the vehicles, and so it really, the filming for it starts before we even leave. So it's like an ongoing thing. There's lots of road footage that we get, and just trying to make things different each time it can certainly be a challenge. I'm sure Justin can
Well, our preparation and traveling to the locations and all of the adversity and time wrapped up in that is part of the story that we're trying to tell. So I say, hey, Josh, can you like set up cameras and record yourself packing? He's like, do I have to? Yes, please. So, I tell them to do different things, stick cameras inside the boot of their trunk so I can see the the stuff going into their trunks. I tell them to record everything. And it's just hard. It becomes laborious, time consuming.
It is very time consuming.
The end result looks good. Hopefully they think it's worth it when they're doing it. I even tell Josh and Derek, we put the drone up in the air and we record the vehicles leaving our houses and going down the road, for footage in the videos. And not a whole lot of people do that on, people who just ghost hunt on the weekends type of group. We're actually a small independent film production company doing all these things, and it becomes pretty complex.
And now doing that kind of filming is it's just part of the routine now. It's not really, it's fun to do. It's fun to set up the shots and stuff like that. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, but now it's just kind of, it's part of that routine. So like, okay, what kind of shots do we want to get now? Do we want to switch the camera up, put it in a different spot in the cab? I actually moved. I used to do the road footage. I would use a suction cup mount and put the camera up against the windshield. Well, I actually, for the last one, I put the camera behind the grill in my truck. So cause I kept getting a glare from the dash and it drove me crazy. I couldn't get it out of the shot. So I put it behind the grill of the truck, and I had to modify the grill a little bit and make a mount and everything and set it up so that we could, and it gives you a different perspective of the road and where you're going, because none of that stuff is in front of it. There's nothing in front of the camera other than what you're filming. There's no obstacles. It's not the window. There's no glare, that kind of thing. So I really like the way that turned out. So I can, I'll just continue to use it.
I even make Josh film in his shop, like the 3D printer filming parts of the deadlights being built. When he's making handcrafting some of the housings on the others and wiring stuff up. I may even make him feel that stuff. And I could just hear the voice in his head. He's like, damn you, Justin.
The next call is going to be like, Josh, film you putting your underwear in your overnight bag.
Yeah, I need you all. I need footage of you all brushing your teeth and looking tired.
I was going to say, our next endeavor to get even more in depth is going to be filming us having dinner the night before and then taking our showers and then getting in bed and sleeping the night before and then getting up the morning of the investigation and looking all crazy and scattering around trying to get stuff done.
Well, like Justin's motto is like, what does he always say? If you don't get it on camera, it didn't happen.
No,
right.
That's right.
Brush twice a day and floss once.
A lot of the times we try to, when we actually get to sleep in a location, which is kind of rare now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this last time we got to sleep, we slept at the jail in Hartford City, but when we slept at Thornhaven,
mm-hmm.
I had an experience that night. Everybody had fallen asleep, or at least to me appeared to be asleep. Everything was quiet, and we actually had cameras set up, basically capturing us sleeping, just to see if anything would happen. And before I fell asleep, I had a couple things happen.
It's bizarre when Josh cannot fall asleep.
This man. When Josh isn't the first person to sleep, it's
weird.
He can fall asleep sitting up in the middle of an investigation. Okay, this man can just sleep anywhere, and we set up a camera, and he could not get to sleep, and things started. There was something definitely messing with him.
Yeah.
If he can't sleep, then there's a problem.
Well, and at one point there, I was laying there and some paint that was peeling off the ceiling had fallen down and I think hit my legs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I woke up in the morning, there was like this peeled paint
All over you.
on my sleeping bag. And,
Yeah, what you guys don't know, he's actually sleeping right now, and he can still have a conversation.
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
He won't remember
He's
any
not
of this
sleeping.
tomorrow.
We know better. No snoring.
It's funny.
It is.
Well, it is amazing how it does affect you. We stayed in the Grand Imperial in Silverton, Colorado, and everybody else went to sleep. I could not sleep because there was so much activity going on. I think I may have gotten 30 minutes that night. And so the next day it was just a bunch of comical errors, so on and so forth. Shenanigans from me are to be expected when there is no sleep. But it is amazing how that does affect you when you have paranormal happenings, how it increases your adrenaline. And yeah, it's impossible to sleep except for Josh.
There was that one time at Thornhaven.
yeah.
Exactly.
Can you tell us
I
about
felt-
that, Josh?
So whenever we set up the cots and everything, and I think Derek and Missy always have their fancy travel air mattress, and I usually end up sleeping. I just take the cot just because it's easier. It's just easy to set up and everything, and I remember laying on my stomach, and I closed my eyes. Everybody was sleeping, nobody was snoring yet, and I could hear music. It was like, okay, I recognized the song, but I couldn't name it. I couldn't think of a name, but it was like a recognizable song. And after that, it was almost like it was a voice in my head. I couldn't tell if it was a voice in my head or if I actually heard it, but it was like children or young people, but it was more than one. And they said, I don't remember what they said to me, but they were saying my name. It was a full sentence, and they kept saying it over and over and over again. And it was weird to me. Yeah. That might have been the first time I ever heard. And they called me by my last name. So they were calling me Bender. They weren't calling me Josh.
Wow.
And so it was pretty odd to me.
When none of us had used the word bender all night.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you guys really don't. You guys always call me Josh. You really don't
Right.
call me Bender. So
What it was that little kid from upstairs coming down saying, "Why did you let that bad man scare me, Bender?"
Why?
yeah, that place was definitely an interesting location, and I would definitely go back. And I know the owner has had some health issues, and it's been difficult to get into that location, but definitely one of my favorites.
Well, on that note, we do have to go to our second musical break. On this break, we have Michaelin Hay again with Mirror, and she is a high school Canadian phenom. And we also have Tracy Cruz, Bay Area, California. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
I dove right in. Didn't bring a parachute. Fell right through. Hit the water hard. Moving too fast. Spiraling out of control. Was touch and go. Went a little far. You taught me how to turn a blind eye. I showed you how to keep a shoulder cold. No one walked away without a scar. I've been digging through the pieces. Your heart is utterly
empowers me. It gives me the energy to move beyond my capabilities. There is no limit to what your love can do.
I feel chemistry whenever you're close to me, and I cannot explain your energy, 'cause you're pulling me like gravity. It feels so strong, I cannot escape your electricity. This rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. Rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. Physical attraction holds us like a magnet, and I cling to you like static, and I can't let go. Your love is so dynamic, makes me a fanatic, got me feeling ecstatic. Will my heart come to this rush flowing through to my veins? This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. Rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. Rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. Straight right through your heart. Rush flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. You know what you've done to me. I'm feeling so excited, feeling strong and I can't fight it. Oh, do you know what you've done to me? Got me feeling so inspired, set my heart and soul on fire. Let's create a love that's strong. Let's make life a happy song. Let's bring joy to everything. Let's enjoy what life brings. Let's create a love that's so strong. Let's make life a happy song. Let's bring joy to everything. Let's enjoy what life brings. This rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. I will never be the same. Ooh, this rush keeps flowing through to my veins. This feeling's insane and I can't explain. Ooh, I will never be the same.
Your voice is the sword,
No, 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 no.
and I'm the microphone. I receive what you say to me.
I will never find someone else like you. You make me feel so good in your love, like some my heart, like electricity, electricity. I will never find someone my soul and wash away all the pain. joy fall from the sky to make us smile. You loving me, I feel like flying. You loving me, I feel like crying. Tears of joy fall from the sky to make us smile. To make us smile, to make us smile. I feel like crying. You loving me, I feel like crying. Tears of joy, smile to make me smile a million times. You loving me, I can't describe your love. I can't describe your love. It makes me smile. You make love worthwhile. Now I can see how much your love has affected me. Everything you do makes me smile.
Thank you so much for listening to us tonight on Late Night in the Rockies on We Are Paradox Media. We are joined by Interface Death Paranormal with team members Justin, Melissa, Derek, Jessica, and Josh. Thanks so much for being on the show tonight, you guys, and it's been so awesome listening to your experiences and learning from you guys.
It's our pleasure.
Yes, thanks for having us.
No worries. So, Derek, I believe you were just talking before we came on break about Justin's mother who just came through and gave Justin a message. Derek, can you fill us in on what you were saying before we came off of break, and then we'll go to Justin with the revelation that his mom just told him about.
Yeah, Justin's mom's, she does wicked stuff. I mean, it's mind blowing the stuff that she does for somebody like me who hasn't experienced a lot of that. And when she does it, it's like, whoa, it blows your mind. Because what I was getting ready to say before we came back in was we were going to do a location, and he had told her, he said, hey, we're gonna get a car and take a road trip. And she had no idea what was going on. And before she even got in the car, she was telling him about the location, what the place looked like, where the place was at, things that were going on in the location. She was giving details, the color of the shutters, how the stairs led up to the place and all kinds of stuff. And it was like, whoa. But then you can be in the same room, and you'll have the most calm feeling on the planet sitting next to her. And then she'll start picking up on stuff, and that calm feeling turns into, other feelings, because she will actually, you can feel the vibrations coming off of her when she's picking up on stuff. And it's like, man, it's insane.
You're telling me. Well, I can't tell you what she told me just a moment ago, because it involves some stuff that we definitely don't, discuss publicly. But my mom, I don't know any other better story to convey what abilities my mom has. But here we go. I'm about 8 years old, maybe 7 years old, and me and my brother both have a Little League baseball game that we got to go to. We're dressed up in our uniforms, and we had just been evicted by our landlord for not being able to mow a section of our yard. Our landlord was completely crazy. She was just a bad woman. But she ended up evicting us because we didn't have a lawnmower to cut this tall field-like grass in our yard. Just trying to find an excuse to get us out there. So we dress up for the ball game, and we're going to return the house keys to the landlord before we go to the game. So we go up the driveway to this landlord's house, and my mom and dad leave me and my brother in the car. And my mom and my father walk up to the back door, and they're met at the back door with a crazy woman, which is our landlord, with a 9mm pointed point blank at their face, yelling, "Get off my property, I'll kill you, get off my property, or I'll shoot you." So my dad immediately jumps 10 yards off the back porch and hides behind a bush. My mom's just standing there looking at the barrel of this gun. And she said it a few more times, "Donna, I'll shoot you, Donna, I'll shoot you." And she's just standing there. So she squeezes the trigger and nothing happens. My mom does not flinch. Okay? My dad is screaming for her to run to the car and run to the car. My mom's just standing there staring at her. So what the landlord does, she's looking at her gun, wondering why it's not firing. She goes down there and tries to rack the bolt to get the gun to unjam. She feels the round free, and she points it at my mom's face again and squeezes again, and nothing happens. By this point in time, my dad runs over to the car, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. So my mom just nonchalants, "Okay, I can't get this guy to shut up." So she kind of turns, it's like she's doing it slow to prove a point. And she slowly RP walks back to the car. And by that time, she gets the bolt free again, and she points it right at the back of my mom's head, and it doesn't go off. So she points it up in the air, maybe like 5 feet over our heads, and then it goes off, and she unloads the clip, the whole entire clip, and her mag over top of our heads. And by that time, Mom, Dad are both in the car, and he's just tearing down the driveway. So we go to the baseball game, and then we play baseball. And the moral of the story is my mom can stop bullets from shooting her in the face. Okay? This is the type of power, for lack of a better term, that she possesses. She can pop in and out of reality, mold reality when she feels like it's necessary. It's not like she goes around acting like a god, but she can do it. She suffers what people know as the Mandela effect. She goes in and out of time streams. And you'll be talking to her about something, and she'll be like, "What? I don't remember that." Or like they were just talking in the kitchen a little bit ago. They were talking about Lizzie Borden. In her memory, Lizzie Borden was found guilty and hung. And my daughter is like, "No, she was found not guilty." And she's like, "What?" So they had to show her on the internet. And it's just little things like that. She pops in and out of reality. And it's just been a weird 40 years, Tessa. It's been, my whole life I felt like reality is not what it is. Does that make sense? Like everybody else is living this reality, but I'm not a part of it. You know what I mean?
I'm just standing back there watching it. I don't know.
Yeah. And
have you experienced
into my 20s.
Effect?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Finish your story.
Oh, well, just to tie a bow around it. I didn't really was convinced of what my mom's been telling me and what she experienced until my 20s when I was telling you about the house with the firefighter, and that's when you can't deny it at that point. But the Mandela effect, the stuff that most people experience, like the mirror on the wall stuff and that type of thing, the original cartoon of Snow White, if you go back and watch it, it says, what's it say? Magic mirror on the wall. And everybody remembers it as mirror on the wall.
Who's the fairest of them all?
Yeah, but see, everybody remembers it as Mirror Mirror, but if you go back and watch the movie, it doesn't say Mirror Mirror. It says Magic Mirror. So there's all these little weird Mandela effects that, I have collectively experienced along with everybody else, but nothing to the extreme of my mother that I'm aware of.
What about you, Melissa and Derek? Have you experienced the Mandela effect? Are there things that have changed for you that haven't for others?
I don't think so that I can remember. I can't remember anything that's really been changed, relative to everyday stuff. Because, I've never really experienced a whole lot when it comes to that area at all.
Well, I'm just thinking back on different things, like he was saying, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, or Curious George. I swear to God, he used to have a tail. Now he doesn't. Let's see. Fruit Loops was spelled differently. What was the other one? The Bernstein Bears was spelled differently. I used to read the heck out of those books. So many different things. Yeah. The guy that used to hold I think it was a turkey leg. Now it's something else. So many different things. And even Luke, I Am Your Father. My husband used to remember it the same, and then he changed it to what they're saying now. And I'm like, okay, alternate reality Vern. Are you really my husband, or are you an alternate reality husband? It's weird how different people begin to change. Even the JFK used to be front seat, back seat, and then all of a sudden it's front, middle, and back. And oh God, so many different things. It's just like mind blowing to me. How the heck is this happening? And there's not only thousands, there's millions of people that remember it the same and others that don't. And it seems like the numbers kind of fluctuate, and it makes me wonder, is it CERN or is it something else?
It could be both. I have a lot of hypotheses. I don't know if you want me to go down that rabbit hole, but I can.
It's deeper than the one Derek stepped in at Midville.
Well, let's go, before we go into the rabbit hole, if Melissa and Derek are done, we can go to Jessica and Josh and then perhaps go down the rabbit hole together.
I honestly, I didn't know what that was until it was a couple months ago, wasn't it, Justin? Because I remember I actually went to Kohl's. I was buying some things, and I don't know why me and this cashier just started talking, and then he brought it up, and then we started talking about paranormal. But he was naming some things. I'm like, no, that is what happened. And then I'm bringing out my phone, like the guy that did the oh my goodness, I don't remember. Okay, I'm not. Oh, the Peanuts cartoon, the
Charlie
comics.
Brown.
There you go. Charlie Brown.
Schultz.
Yes, but it's like I remember it. I think it with a T, but there's no T in it. Like he walked me over and like, look at this book. The last name doesn't have, whatever letter it was. This was months ago, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. So I'm still like, it's a typo, and I'm like looking it up, and there was a couple other different things, and I remember calling Justin. I'm like, what the hell is this like guy talking about? And then we started talking about, they're paranormal and how he's interested. He thinks it's all, and I'm like, wait a minute. So, I mean, I didn't really know what that was until the Kohl's cashier was telling me about it. But, I mean, just the things that he actually brought up, I remembered what he was saying. He goes, no, that's wrong. So it was very interesting. Justin's like my go-to person. He's like, I'm like, Justin, what's going on?
Instead of going Google, you go Justin.
Right. Justin's my Google. It's easier to call Justin than to look it up.
And I believe it all began with Mandela. He got sick and died, but then he really didn't. He was released and became president, and all kinds of amazing other things happened. It's like, that's where it all began, was Mandela, and that's why it's called the Mandela effect. And then we go back to Justin because he knows where the rabbit hole is.
Well, one rabbit hole is if you look into quantum physics and quantum theory, it takes you all the way back to the double slit experiment when scientists started to understand that some things were waves and some things were particles and some things were both waves and particles. The Schrödinger equation explained the wave-like possibility probability wave that these particles, photons, and electrons would have. They'd be in superposition. They'd be in multiple places at one time. So when scientists looked into this, they were trying to come up with explanations for how this could be possible. So one of the interpretations is called the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. Now, since things can be in multiple places at once, there may be multiple dimensions, okay, happening all at the same time. Normally, these dimensions are decoherent from ours. We cannot interact with them. So say the scientists. But I believe that's false. I believe that the mind can interact with these layers of alternate possibility. Some people with abilities can access these, okay? So if that's true, if there's multiple dimensions out there, what could be happening is you are in a slightly different dimension in reality at one point in your life where you form the memory, but then something happened to where you've shifted into a different probability wave. Okay? So your memory does not align with where you shifted to in this current state of reality. So what's interesting to me about that idea is the science experiment with a double slit. The photons and electrons would behave like waves. They would interfere as it went through the double slit. But when you took a look at it and measured it, it would turn into a particle and not interfere with each other. So we're collapsing the wave function as we go along. Okay? Everything seems like a linear time stream where everything's physical, everything's there where you think it is. But when you look at it in certain ways, like waveforms, what the electrons and the particles are actually doing, you'll see the breakdown of reality. You'll see the illusion. And that's what's fascinating to me. And hopefully, if we get to the point where we can prove these ideas as fact, that could explain the Mandela effect.
Well, a lot of people think that due to CERN playing with the God particle and causing many collisions in this little tubal thing, like that's going to protect us from whatever implosions or explosions are happening, that each time that they're doing this, there's different things that are changing, different shifts and different dimensions or worlds or however you want to think of it. And there's little tiny changes as far as eye color, perhaps hair texture, different things like that. I don't know. It's pretty interesting, and the longer that time goes on, it seems like the more things are changing. I haven't looked in on it in a long time because it really blew my mind, and I was kind of beside myself with it. Like, what the hell is going on?
What I remember is when they would collide particles, they would actually create black holes that would suck everything and break our reality. So in order for our reality to keep going, it had to split apart into different dimensions to survive. So the realities that we were once a part of when the mix formed are destroyed, and the new realities are here now. So it'll change small little things like, mirror on the wall, for example. Before they collided certain particles to create certain black holes that would destroy our reality, we formed that memory, and that memory stayed intact, but everything else changed. So that's what you're talking about, is CERN destroying parallel realities.
Or conjoining them, like there's different shifts. It's pretty interesting.
Well,
and I was going to ask you guys, as far as like the paranormal, for me it's an umbrella of things. The whole Mandela effect, aliens, UFOs. Do you guys do investigations on UFO sightings or alien encounters?
Not as a group. I interview a few people locally that have encounters, but we don't seek out those things. We do cryptid research, like we do Mothman, but not not that's not something we focus. We went and investigated Mothman once as a group, and it wasn't a full blown investigation. But before we grouped up together, I actually did more research on Mothman because I live so close to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. But not necessarily, no.
Do you guys have in the, I think you call it southwestern area, any other cryptids besides the Mothman? Have you guys ever heard of cobalt, or I believe it's Kentucky goblins?
Oh yeah, over here where we live, there's probably a dozen or two of different things. We have our vision of Bigfoot over here. We have a lot of cryptids that originate from the Ohio River. There's the frogman and lizardman. There's the Mothman. There's a grass monster. A whole bunch of different things, and it all stems from the pollution of the Ohio River, Native American cultures, kind of influencing, folklore of, our colonial history, and it, spreading into what we currently know now. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a definite spectrum of different things that people see and encounter in the Ohio, Indiana, and West Virginia, Kentucky area, even in Pennsylvania. Appalachian Mountains are just covered. I mean, Josh could probably tell you some of this research he's done just in Appalachia. There's all kinds of different things and legends and folklore things.
Josh?
He's one of them. Look at him. He's a cryptid.
I'm
Anybody wants to
originally
know
from
why I wanna-
Arkansas, so.
Yeah, there's that. I don't know the story behind it, but there's a town. It's a couple hours north, and I don't know the story behind it, but it's called the Flatwoods Monster. So there's there's things like that, and of course the Mothman's not far from me, and I remember a friend of mine in Virginia. I think their version of the Bigfoot they call the Woodburger or wood booger, and it's basically the same thing. And there's actually a statue up on the mountain that they have, and so there's a lot of, I think, you have Bigfoot, but there's different names for it depending on what area you're from. Not necessarily a different animal or being, but like the Flatwoods Monster, I've seen like drawings of what people saw, and it's a odd looking thing. But I never did read up on the story behind it. But that's about all I can think of as far as the area I'm in and the area I'm from.
There's so much in Appalachian America, as I like to call it. I've lived in the Rockies and the Appalachians, and I've experienced so many different things in different areas, and experiences with what somebody told me was kobolds. To me, they look like gremlins, but the ears were a little shorter. Minions, perhaps they're called. But to me, the closest thing that I found was the Kentucky goblins, except for their eyes didn't glow. But it's interesting to hear different people's perspectives and what exactly, like, I know painting a picture with words is kind of difficult. The Flatwoods, or is it Flatwoods or Flatlands Monster? Flatwoods?
Yeah, Flatwoods is the name of the town that the story is from. So it's the Flatwoods Monster.
So is it like a Bigfoot, or is it something else?
I'm not sure what it is. I can look it up real quick.
I'm going to show you right now, Tessa. Just
you have it?
Yeah, I'm going to see if I I can share my screen. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Sharing your screen now. So right here is the flatwood monster. It's pretty strange looking.
Like,
Yeah, it's kind of has like some type of dress. It's for your listeners. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like what European queens would wear, but it comes up into a point instead of just like ruffles around the head. It's like a round head with glowing eyes, and it's very slender, and it like hovers off the ground. Sometimes I think there's tentacles, right, Josh? Like some people have seen tentacles come from this thing. I'm trying to find one if that matches, but it's usually wearing like a dress. It looks like a skirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like this even looks almost like a reptilian. It's really weird. I believe we're just dealing with different types of fae and nature beings, and a lot of times they're interdimensional. Like even Bigfoot, I think, is either a nature being or an interdimensional being. I don't think it's a physical, unsubstantiated creature. For 1 second.
It's interesting because there's different pictures where they're fuzzy or somewhat translucent, but it makes me think like there's physical beings of us and ghost or spirit beings of us. Why can't there be ghost or spirit beings of Bigfoot? Perhaps the ones that are fuzzy or somewhat translucent are ghosts of Bigfoot. Or, there's other people that think they're transdimensional or in league with the aliens, so on and so forth. Or like you're saying, I've heard different people report to me that Bigfoot work with fae, and they're kind of like the muscle behind the brain. The fae is the brain and the Bigfoot is the brawn. There's different theories.
Well, the stuff that I pay attention to is if the tracks that people are finding and making casts out of are real, then it has to have some physical qualities and attributes to it. So that doesn't mean it's not the ghost of Gigantopithecus or something like that, because a lot of people believe that Bigfoot is just the ghost of something that is already in our fossil records that's extinct, called Gigantopithecus. So there's a lot of theories. We just don't. No evidence.
And I just shared the picture of the Flatlands monster on We Are Paradox Media on Facebook. I tried on Spreaker, but you can't really share pictures there unless I change my pic. But it's interesting the different things, cryptids, so on and so forth, that are going on in different areas. And I think the East is somewhat more populated than other areas with different experiences and hauntings, because there's been more people there, and then everybody spread out to the west.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the research... I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek.
I brought up to Justin and Josh during one of our production meetings. We were discussing stuff that, we wanted to look to do in the future. And northern Indiana, up around Gary, Indiana, and Chicago, Illinois, pretty much almost in a 100-mile radius circle of that area. There have been multiple sightings within the last 2 years of a Mothman-like creature that fits the complete description of the Mothman that was captured in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that disappeared after the bridge collapse. So it's kind of intriguing because of the theories of why the Mothman was supposed to be in West Virginia. Was he warning everybody of the dangers that were coming with the bridge collapse? And it seems like this one, according to all the articles that I've read that have popped up, is doing the same thing. It's appearing on bridges and in certain areas. So it's kind of intriguing to think, maybe it's a complete repeat scenario of what they had at Point Pleasant going on in northern Indiana now. And then, that kind of stuff's kind of strange. because you can't really, without going there and researching it extensively, you can't validate what the people are putting in the newspapers and in the magazine articles and stuff like that. But when you get to talking about the interdimensional beings and stuff that, cryptids and UFOs and all that, I mean, there's a place out around where Justin lives at. It's an old town. It's called Fallsville, and there's not much out there. Foundation of the original house, and we went out there to just kind of investigate a little bit one night, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced anything that I would consider to be an interdimensional being. And all I saw was it run through the woods. And it was the fastest thing that I've ever seen moving through the woods. And it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But I happened to be the only one to see it. It didn't capture it on camera. But according to the stories that Justin's heard from some of the other locals, they've seen the exact same thing. So, stuff like that's really, it's intriguing, but when you're investigating the paranormal side of everything, to put the effort into investigating the cryptids, the UFOs, and the interdimensional beings, you would have to shift your focus away from paranormal to just that, because it's going to take a ton of research just to validate any of that.
Yeah, and that's why it's so hard, because under the umbrella of the paranormal is so many things: cryptids, aliens, UFOs, folklore. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But it's intriguing. And like you were talking about Mothman, some people thought of it as an evil entity. Others were like, it shows up before very catastrophic events. Even in personal events, when it shows up in front of the vehicle. Perhaps it was slowing down the vehicle because it knew something was going to happen down the road. It's hard to say what exactly is going on. And it's pretty interesting and intriguing to try to look into it and see what exactly it is. Is it a guardian, or is it something darker?
Justin, didn't we have a viewer on the show that we just did that said that her mother's seen Mothman?
Sandy Griffin.
Yeah.
Because she's from the Point Pleasant area.
Well, I think she was living by us when she would lived here. Or was she? I don't remember.
I thought she was living up there.
Okay, she might have been. But yeah, she was telling us the story that her mom seen it. Was like wasn't like her mom telling all the kids to get inside the house?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she said that they moved before the bridge collapse. Because I remember one of you guys asking if she was there for the bridge collapse, and she said they had moved before the bridge collapsed.
Yeah, I think during my research for the documentary I did years back, hundreds of people saw it. And that's very interesting. It makes you think that there was more than one if that many people saw it. If not, it gets around.
Yeah, it was kind of like rush hour traffic, so there was a lot of people going this way and that. And I think that's where a lot of people saw it that day when the bridge collapsed. It's not going to fly around car to car and try to communicate when you don't understand what it's saying. It's kind of, I don't know, trying to be an omen, but what do you really think that is? How do you decipher that? Wow, there's a thing with wings on the side of the bridge. Get away.
Well, they
as
first
possible,
encountered it out at a plant that used to what was that plant, Derek? Crap, my memory sucks. Was it it was a chemical plant, and some couple had pulled off there, to get a little bit busy, if you know what I mean, and they saw it swoop down and land on top of a chemical plant. And it freaked them the hell out.
Yeah, well, wasn't it a chemical plant that was making chemicals to test for weapons for the war?
No, that's the TNT bunkers were bunkers that housed munitions for the war, and it was seen out there as well. Mm-hmm. The chemical plant was just it just made chemicals for companies that used the chemical whatever they're making. But there was actually no reports of it seen during the Civil Bridge collapse. It wasn't seen during the collapse.
So
And it wasn't
on,
seen afterwards either.
right? Yeah, and it's hard to decipher, why is it there? What is it trying to communicate or convey? But it seems to be there right before perilous or dangerous things happen. But moving on to other things, have you guys encountered dark entities? Have you ever been attacked, scratched? Have you had a walk-in? Tell us about those experiences.
Yeah, I have one I can talk about. Before everybody was in the group that's on this call, before I even entered, but this was before Interface Death was even a group. I was messing around with another local paranormal researcher, and he turned me on to a cold case that involved a woman who was murdered. The person who murdered her was already tried and convicted and in prison, but this murder case was the only case in history at that time that had a murder conviction where there was no body found. So no one knows where this particular woman's body was. So he's like, "Hey, do you want to try to help me find this gal's body? Maybe we can use ITC. Maybe we can, use some of the tools we use to communicate with spirits to find the body." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. If I can find some woman's child's remains." Well, she was a young adult at the time, like 17, I think. Then that would be great. That would be super fulfilling. So we were out investigating around. We were doing research, trying to trace her last steps to where people knew where she was at. And she was this guy that got convicted of killing her. We learned that he was a Satanist, and he used to do snuff films. Sorry, where he would tape record murders, beatings, and disposal of bodies. And pretty sick guy. And once we learned about this and we got close to where we thought she was buried at, where some psychics had pointed to the location of this, all of a sudden things got really weird. The guy I was investigating with called me up in the middle of the night one night and said, "Hey man, do you have some sage? There's some crazy stuff happening to my house." And this guy never acts like this. So I thought it was very uncharacteristic of him. And I'm like, "No, man, I don't have anything." It's like, "What's going on?" He was hearing bangs in his house. They wouldn't let him sleep. He said there was something haunting, almost attacking, he wouldn't let him sleep and doing all this and that. And what's even stranger was this is the last time I heard from the guy for a year, about a year and a half. Couldn't find out where he went. Couldn't get a hold of him. And, but before we get into that night, I remember getting up from like 2 a.m. where he had hung up with me, and I walk into my bathroom, and all of a sudden I felt like I was being attacked psychically. I felt like something was trying to induce horrific visions in my mind. And little did this entity know that wasn't going to work with me particularly. I could see it working with most people, but it didn't work with me, so I could shake it off. And I pretty much dealt with it, but my friend could not deal with this. And what ended up happening was it pretty much ruined his life. His girlfriend at the time left him, took him for everything he had. His sister went crazy in his house and tried to burn down his house with him and his brother and his dad in it. And he pretty much had to move away and not tell anybody so this entity couldn't mess with him and, his family and friends. So he went away for like a year and a half because of all this stuff happening with the case. And I believe to this day that it was because of the stuff that this murder was dealing with. And what crosses the T's and dots the I's for this for me is a couple years back, I started working with a psychic from Tennessee, and I was telling her about this case, and she's like, "Well, I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to, try to do some reading, see if I can pick up on some things." And I warned her I was like, I don't think you should. Everybody that comes close to this case or tries to work on it, bad stuff happens. She's like, oh, I'm not afraid. Well, it took about a month and a half. She started becoming very ill, and her husband had like 2 or 3 different types of cancer, and it ended up in the hospital almost dying. And I remember the last thing I said to her was, I don't want to tell you I told you so, but do you see what I'm saying now? And she's like, yeah, I should have listened to you. So I just find that not a coincidence. You know what I mean? That, there are dark things out there. There are things that are evil. Sometimes you get in over your head and you need to get out. That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier about this other place that is quite haunted. The owner is very sick. Is that because of what's going on there, or is that genetically or naturally caused? It's hard to tell sometimes, but the paranormal or any sort of stress is very toxic to a human's body. So it's hard to say what exactly is going on there. Have you guys considered going back to this place where the owner's quite sick and not able to let you in to see if there is something that you can cleanse or take away from him to help him out in his life?
No, I'm no longer friends with the guy, if that's what you're talking about, the other investigator.
I think she's talking about Thornhaven.
Oh, I don't think his illness has anything to do with the haunting.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
He already had a few health issues, I think, before it got bad. Tessa, I don't know if I can hear you.
I'm
You
here.
want to know something that's really weird?
Okay, I hear you now.
What's really weird is this conversation that we just had. Josh was kind of closing his eyes for a brief second, and Missy just looked at me and said, "Oh, it's happening." His eyes closed just like they did at Thornhaven, and then she's talking about the guy being sick from Thornhaven, and then Josh brings up, "Hey, are you talking about the guy being sick from Thornhaven?" I'm like, "What the hell's going on with Thornhaven?"
His eyes were
There's
doing the
something
same thing
going
as Thornhaven?
Yeah, they were getting really heavy.
When he was sitting at the table at Thornhaven,
when
and
we
he
were
kept
sitting,
going,
we were sitting at the table at Thornhaven, and we were both dozing off.
Circles. There's circles.
It struck me really funny that everybody all of a sudden starts talking about Thornhaven.
See, I don't draw that same connection because I've seen him do that so many times.
Exactly.
But there's other
Face cam
things in this
footage.
circle that
Face
are
cam
adding
footage
up
is
to
great.
it.
He does it in the middle of interviews. This one time in band camp.
Right?
We won't go there.
That's hilarious.
He's just tired. He works long hours.
He
doesn't
does.
get a lot of sleep.
Right.
He works at work. He works at home. He works.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody else has experienced anything remotely close to that, though.
I know. I haven't experienced anything dark. I mean, I've always heard claims of, like malevolent spirits. Just angry. I kind of separate those from evil. I think those are two completely different things. And even though they're doing things that aren't nice, I don't think they're evil. They're just, maybe portraying the person that they or personality that they were when they were alive, but nothing evil. I mean, I've been touched before, but I've never been scratched that I can remember.
So we're in the last few minutes of the show before we go to where to find you. Do you guys cleanse or do anything to protect yourself before you go on investigation? And if so, what do you do?
Well, I perform house cleansings for people from time to time. I do my own cleansings at home. I do practice some things that would be considered metaphysical and spiritual myself. And like I said, I do it for people sometimes in their homes. But when I go to a location, I don't go in protected, but I am ready for something to happen and would not proactively do anything, but reactively do something, because I feel like if I'm going to a location and I go in protected, that's not why I'm going to the location. I want to see what happens. I want to experience what happens, and I want to document it. So I don't proactively protect myself, but I will prep myself spiritually, like I talked about with Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Like, I will prime myself depending on where I'm going, just to see if there is enough, some type of effect that happens if I do certain things. I know Jess has some experiences going to some locations that she's had issues with. I don't know if she goes in protected or not, what she does, but I know she does things when she goes out and about to the store and goes out in public. But I usually only do things reactively to protect myself and cleanse.
Okay, so we'll go to Melissa and Derek. Do you guys do anything to protect yourself before you go on investigation?
Not before. Not usually.
No. Normally when we go, pretty much with nothing. And then now if we come home, normally when we come home, she always does, her normal salt baths, stuff like that, to kind of, cleanse the energy. She always has crystals and stuff. She normally takes a lot of that stuff with her on investigations. That way, if she needs it, she's got something like that. Me, on the other hand, I kind of go in, I go in guns blazing, and I figure if it's going to be in there and it's going to attach to me, when I come home,
Justin will fix me.
Yeah, when I come home, I'm making phone calls. I'm like, hey guys, something's messed up.
Something's happening.
Right? I've had that happen twice while I wasn't on location. Both times were kind of just odd occurrences where I came home and it was like 3 or 4 days after the fact, and I just started feeling weird. Mm-hmm. My mood changed. I was agitated. I'd get mad really fast, and she'd grab a hold of me and be like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, okay, well, something's up because you're getting all angry and being crazy. And, she'll normally throw me in the bathtub and give me a cleansing bath and stuff like that, and it kind of goes away.
I want to say things so much right now, but I gotta keep it PG-13.
That's all right. We're rated R here. We're all adults.
A lot of times,
you don't know me very well, Tessa.
Don't open that up. Don't open that up.
I was raised with a sick sense of humor, so I appreciate you and your sick sense of humor.
Yeah, I kind of, just go into things. I go into everything open-minded. I try not to do any protection stuff because, I want to experience things.
Yeah, it can alter things. I've learned that if you do too much before you go in, it'll alter things where you don't experience anything. So, best to go willy-nilly unless it's really hairy and then clean up afterwards. What about you, Jessica and Josh?
I try not to have too much protection when I walk in. Now, if I know I'm going to have an issue with the location, like the jail, I was having issues prior of going. Unsure at the time why, but it's like I almost have like my guard like ready to go up because I knew I was having issues prior of going to the location. I do the same thing with Missy does. I do the salt baths when I get back. I do have crystals, but I usually don't have them on me, and they're there like with Missy, if I feel I need them. But yeah, I try not to because I feel, you get more if you don't, walk in completely protected.
That's right. Well, we're at the end of our time. So, Justin, can you tell our listeners again where they can find you and your team and how they can watch your adventures?
Yes, I can. Listen, boys and girls. Interface death www.interfacedeath.net. www.interfacedeath.net. That is where you can go and look at all of our social media accounts, all of our videos, our online store, our biographies, everything. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. But we would like you to go to interfacedeath.net because websites are expensive. And there's cool things there. If you join our newsletter and subscribe to our website, we don't spam you. Maybe send you 3 or 4 things every 30 days just to keep you up to date. But the social media, we spam the crap out of people because it's so oversaturated. It's like a notification war. But if you subscribe to the website, we promise not to spam you. So I would just go there and pick whatever social media you want to follow us on. Our YouTube channel's there. Everything's there. And Deadlight is only on Facebook. So if you go to our website and click on the Deadlight link, it'll take you to Facebook.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being my guest tonight, Justin, Melissa, Derek, Jessica, and Josh. Thank you so much for being on Late Night in the Rockies this evening. It's been amazing having you, and I love how you turned your hat around like you're ready to get into it. You guys come to the after party?
This is gangster move.
Yeah. He's about to go in.
It's downtown Justin Brown.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much again for being on. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Yeah, it was fun.
And feel free to hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
I'm crashing.
Missy's old and not very much fun.
So are you.
Now you have the tired Justin Brown, a little tired, so therefore he's going to be...
That's coming out now.
Yeah, the real Justin Brown's coming out.
Well, I understand being tired. Man, I went to Arkansas, then New Orleans, then back to Arkansas, which is where my roots are, and then came back here to Colorado. So I think I'm jet lagged and have elevation things going on, so on and so forth. So I'm interested to see how tonight goes on the after party. But if you guys want to hang out, you're more than welcome to. And anyone listening, if you want to call 970-335-9596, you can come into the after party or send me a contact request to Tessa N. Thomas Peterson on Skype. But yeah, you guys are fun. And it always seems like there's not enough time, but I learned a lot from you guys, and I'm so grateful for what you guys do. You guys do personal things as far as homes and workplace, so on and so forth. Do you guys charge for that?
Yep. $5,000 a pop. I'm just
Hell
joking.
yeah, I can learn from you. Just kidding. I'm going broke doing this. I'm like, how am I going to pay for this show?
No, we don't charge people, but we are very picky about where we go and what we do. You know, a lot of people are just trying to get on TV. A lot of people are just wanting attention and wanting that video of people ghost hunting their house or whatever. You have to do some